today we're going to go through an old document and we're going to tear it apart a little bit and try to figure out what the mindset is and see if we can extract anything positive from it. But we're really going to talk about the desire, how to build it, how to connect to it, and how to generate this state and this screen that the Ari talks about, or this, and through this barrier that the Arizal talks about as well, and go into some stuff. So we're not going to read as much as we are just going to chat, and more questions too. So it really just be open for everybody.
The part to receive according to one's need depends on a person's spiritual level or screen. The more a person wants to receive, the more desires he still needs to correct. His desire to receive for his own sake does not allow him to correctly receive according to his need, and it limits him even more. In addition, if he's not corrected yet, he will not be able to bestow according to his ability. Only by changing his position from reception into bestowal, that is, by passing into spiritual, does a person begin to correctly understand the meaning of the call to bestow according to one's ability and receive according to one's need. When a person understands this correctly, then he decides once and for all that to be completely fulfilled and to be eternal and perfect. When a person is in the spiritual, he learns to bestow more and more and to receive only for the minimum he needs for life. When a person unifies with the Creator, he becomes the same as him. That is, he bestows everything without receiving anything for himself. However, this is precisely the reason why he becomes fulfilled by everything. Ultimately, bestowal becomes the reward, and this is the reason why that kind of life is eternal. The light does not have any interruptions and is constantly inside of the Kli. After all, death is precisely when the light exits out of the Kli.
Okay, so then this is actually a discourse that was taken in bits and pieces from the Arizal, and then later scrutinized a little bit by the Baal Salam, and then taken, I know, on through Rabbi Ashlag and everyone else. But this actually goes back to the same discussion that the Ari had about if I'm a desire to receive, and I'm a desire to receive, there's no way I can get out of that fact that I'm something that was created outside of the Creator, which is the desire to bestow. Am I completely manifesting and changing my entire being and then becoming exactly like the Creator, and then merging with Him and becoming annulled and dissolved? And the answer really to this is no. We're still going to be a desire to receive. We're still going to need to receive. We just are changing the manner in which we receive. Okay, so we're going from the intention to receive for ourselves to the intention to bestow, to receive, really. And in order for me to bestow, I need to have reward still on some level. So to understand this clearly, we're going to talk about, excuse me, the acquiring of a screen and go through this document a little bit. But really what we're looking at here is I'm not becoming annulled by the light through my ascension here. I'm not trying to become destroyed and having the light just somehow use me for this path. In other words, it throws me down to the earth, I accomplish some goals, and I dissolve myself back into it, and I become non-existent. In fact, the opposite. What the Creator is asking us to do is to elevate ourselves to become infinitely strong like He is, and infinitely rewarded, okay, through His bestowal. And the only way to get back through is to take these two poles, these two polarities of right and left, and balance them in the center. So we are still a desire to receive, but now we're a desire to receive from bestowing rather than receiving, which is Malhut or Bihina Dalit, that final phase that we're in here in this world, which is I want and I want because I want. Everything is for me. I need to have some reward for me to move forward for any purpose at all. And we're going to see that there's a shift in that perception that we need to take on. So if you can go on with the next part, Chris, thanks.
We begin with the state connected to the pleasures of this world, such as money, social status, and family. That is, everything relating to the animal level and a small amount related to the human level. In this state, it is impossible to sin or perform a commandment. We can only do so in the spiritual. If a person is ready to restrict the use of these desires, or more precisely, ready to direct one's use of the desires for the sake of the spiritual, then he acquires the ability to enter the first level of the spiritual world. The light on this level is much greater than that of our world.
Okay, right there. So this now we're talking about something completely different. So from our reality, what does this mean? What the heck are they talking about? All right. So we begin in a state connected to pleasures of this world, such as money, social status, family, knowledge, power, all these other things. And these are our drive. These are the things that pull us, right? So now they're speaking about some other reality or perception that we're supposed to connect to. And I have no idea what he's talking about. I don't understand this, and how is this accomplished? So if a person is ready to restrict the use of these desires, or more precisely, ready to direct one's use of desires for the sake of the spiritual, then we acquire the ability to enter the first level of spiritual world. So really here's the question, and this is what eludes every single Kabbalistic discourse, is how do I do that? Okay, that's great. This sounds good. I love this agreement. I'm in, sign me up. How do I get there? Okay, so what are the ways in which I can create this desire for the sake of the spiritual? Especially because we talk when the great Kabbalists of the past have mentioned to us that we don't understand what that desire is. How can we name that which we haven't attained, right? Which we say all the time. That's the old adage, which means that if I don't know what it is, how do I build a desire for it? I'm just sort of in the dark here, aiming for something. So if we look at the major religions and excuse me, focus down to like Judaism, we can see that they're pointing us in the direction of having Torah and mitzvah, and we can see this in other religions and other mysticisms in general. They're sort of pointing us in this direction and pushing us toward this, so we can have a little bit of a more narrow path to what we're trying to accomplish. So with this particular idea of Torah and mitzvah, it's telling us that we need to study and learn about the light, and we also need to try to act like the light, right? So that the mitzvah is the action of the light. I'm trying to bestow. The problem with this, in general, is that for most people who haven't really worked with the higher ideas of our thoughts, emotions, and actions, and are just stuck in this world carrying out actions that are pointless. In other words, I do a mitzvah. I put on tefillin, I read my Torah, I do my zitzit on, right, all of these points, but I'm not really connected to them. I'm doing them because they're part of a habit or part of my culture, or they're part of some idea I feel like I'm giving to God so he can give back to me in some reward later, or I can be a good Jew, or all these things. And this is totally still the wrong intention, because I'm still doing this because I feel like either through guilt or through reward, I have to do these things. I'm still not in the right, I haven't built the right desire here yet. So what we really need to understand is, what is this desire? Okay, if it's not for the Torah and mitzvah, or most people aren't utilizing them correctly, because we see most people are still egoists, right? So how do I do it correctly? And this is the biggest challenge that we have. So we're going to try in this discussion today to figure out how to aim ourselves more closely toward the bullseye. And we're going to answer some of the questions that are left open here that really aren't tackled. It's great to talk about this spiritual world. It's great to talk about this bestowal. It's great to talk about these things that the Kabbalists speak about. But truly, if I don't have direction, they're all pointless philosophy to me. I don't understand what you're saying to me. Show me the way, give me the instructions, and tell me where to go. Otherwise, I just have a bunch of sheep running around the hillside. Okay, so Chris, start at a person asks, and then I'll probably jump in a paragraph or two.
A person asks for a screen in order to withstand the animal pleasure and to receive it only for the sake of the Creator. When we receive the screen, we correct at the first level and proceed to the second. There we are given an even greater desire to receive and an equally greater light. By acquiring the Mashach with a greater anti-egoistic force, a person also corrects the second level and ascends higher. Let us consider the line corresponding to our world as 0. In this case, the first increase of the desire to receive on the first spiritual level will be equivalent to -1, and this corresponds to ascent. The distance between -1 and +1 is equivalent to the size or height of the Ein Sof. Next, we receive the egoism, -2. In order to overcome it, we need the Mashach +2. This is how ascent to the second level takes place, and so forth. The higher one ascends, the lower the fall, in order to ascend even higher.
Okay, so now we're talking a little bit more practicality here. So we at least have something to measure. So I have to build something called a screen, a Mashach, okay, or something like this. In other words, I have to have some will in order to reject the desire for myself So in some way I can have some equivalence of form with the Creator. And based on the law that we know in the spiritual world, that like properties join or they merge together or come together, I have to make my properties again as the goal, like the Creator. So every time there's a need for me to receive for myself, to the degree to which I'm able to overcome it, I've taken one step closer to this connection. Okay? So we hear over and over in the Tanya, especially we read a couple of nights ago, they're talking about the righteous soul and the animal soul, the fish and the shama, right? And then in between we have the spirit to the ruach, right? The vav that connects, right? So we have this in the middle, we have something that's sort of like free will. It's been called free will. We have the ability to push our desire one way or another, or really just the intention on the desire, because the desires are still given to us. We talked at length last night about my thoughts are not my own, right? So basically, I'm a slave in everything underneath that channel. If a thought is given to me, I can only weigh the thought in my mind. I can calculate it, 0 or 1, but I don't generate that thought for the most part. And then the emotion connected to that thought is based on the thought that was given to me above. And the action based on that emotion is also a cascading of that down into this world. So really, by design, I'm a complete slave to the system. Okay, we have to understand that. So because my thoughts are given to me, and my emotions are then based on those thoughts, and my actions are based on the emotions, that cascading, I need to climb to the root in order to understand how I'm working and how to fix or to repoint the machine in the correct way. So one of the ways we do that first is to annul, because I can't bestow. The sages have told me there's no way for me to bestow in this state. I can't do action without receiving something. And even if it's subconscious, I can't give. And this is, the ego has a very good way of clothing us to believe we're bestowing. It's very, very clever. Remember, the greatest trick the ego played was convincing the world it didn't exist. So every time you think, oh man, I just did a great thing, I gave, and all that pat on the back is actually the ego tricking you to receive something. Okay? Bestowal is something we can't understand completely yet. So because of that fact, because we don't understand how to do that, our first steps are annulling. Okay? In other words, the only way I can become, I can have equivalence of form with the Creator is to stop receiving certain things. And that in and of itself, by design, by me refusing, at least that limits the reception. It's not bestowal, but it limits the reception. Now the question becomes then, what am I annulling? What am I doing with this annulment? How am I doing this? Okay? And we always take this idea and we put it into the physical world. Okay, so I really want a car, but because I'm on this path, I'm going to not have the car. That'll be my annulments, right? That has nothing to do with what I'm talking about. The physical, remember, there's a root and a branch. In this world's the branch, in the upper world's the root. The branch here I cannot affect the spiritual from down here on this level by working in the external physical world. Okay, I can't, in other words, if my thought and my emotion and my speech is not connected to one ladder and one idea, then it's still reception. So as much as I push things away in this world, that isn't going to get me there. And that's one of the biggest stumbling blocks we have when we take on this path, is people start to, they say, well, I'm going to whip myself, beat myself. I'm going to take all the good stuff away from my life. I won't eat the same way. I'm going to do all these restrictive things. And really what we're doing then is we're not loving ourselves, right? And we're definitely not creating a vessel that's fit for the light, because the light is purely love and giving. So this is opposite. So this is a trick also. For us to torture ourselves is not the way to go, all right? We just have to understand ourselves. We just have to realize what it is in my thoughts, emotions, and actions I'm doing that I could center myself, okay? So annulling is more of a centering or more of a balance, okay? So when I have a thought, and that thought is going to manifest into my emotional center, and it's going to then come out in speech or action in a asiya, right? I have to make sure that I stay in this boundary box. And this is really how I work with desire. So the moment that I find myself attached to the next moment, or focused, okay, which is obviously looking toward pleasure, or I find myself attached to the last moment, which is living in fear, right? Regret or thinking about the past, that's fear. And the forward moment is actually pleasure, because I'm looking forward to something. Now, we can reverse that and say that I'm looking forward to fear as well, and I'm looking backward to pleasure. It can go either way, all right? And that's another discussion. But I still need to realize that both of those points I'm attached to something, okay, that probably isn't going to help me achieve this desire. All right. So in a practical world, my real work here is keeping myself centered and peaceful in this moment right now. Okay? This is how I'm going to build the right vessel, this holy grail that can receive light. I need to recenter myself. And to the degree that we're able to do this in each moment that passes us by, we build a stronger desire for this bestowal, for this lishma, for this attainment, for this atman, for this upper soul, for this rebirth, whatever you want to call it, whatever religion we're delving in. Okay? But I need to recenter myself. So this is why all the time it says, the yogi student could take 80 years to reach enlightenment or never reach it, and he could take 2 months to reach it, right? It's based on my ability to follow the path. The problem until now is, what's the path? Okay? So if we can learn to do this simple thing in each moment, and it's one of the reasons in Judaism that we're told all the time to say the Shema and to pray, say our morning and afternoon prayers, our nighttime prayers, our bedtime prayers. We pray when we wash our hands. We pray when we eat. And the reason is this prayer is not so that we're somehow serving God and giving him something so that he feels better or the Ein Sof feels better about itself. It's perfect. It doesn't need this from us. Everything it does is so that we correct, so that we can join it, so that we can receive pleasure. It's telling us to do that centering because we're supposed to pray with the right kavanah, the right intention, the right heart, right? It's telling us to do that centering constantly because it knows how we are. It's telling us, recenter yourself in every moment in your day because I know you. And you're going to drift off into the world and you're going to be living in the next moment and you're going to be living in the past moment and you're not going to be here with me right now. And that's one of the reasons that there's so many commandments because one of the great, and a lot of the Jewish people, the Orthodox especially, will realize most people look at them and say, oh my, you guys are crazy. All you do is serve your crazy slaves and you're nuts for going through this craziness. But when utilized correctly, it's really just a matter of focusing on what's important in each moment. That's what the commandments are about, okay? So in the beginning here, because we can't bestow, I need to at least find a common ground. I need to find some point at which I can connect with this light and rise myself. The more that I can build the desire, the closer I'll get to passing or building this Mashach or this screen and going through the veil. But I have to work on this in each second. And when I fall out of this, I'm either falling to the left side, right? I'm falling to egoism. I get mad, angry. And what is anger? Anger is living in the moment that just passed because I'm upset about what you did a moment ago, right? And we all get caught in that. And pleasure we swing to the other side and we have pleasures about something that's coming up that I'm excited about, right? And this means that I'm still not in this moment now, that I'm looking toward. And that these things sway us right and left outside of this degree. So to our ability to maintain this centeredness right now in this moment will drive us through this veil. And that's one of the things we have to focus on. So Chris, if you can read just the next couple and then I'll probably interrupt you again. Thanks, pal.
Malhut of the world of infinity received light for the sake of the Creator in the world of Nekudim and subsequently broke. The breaking of Kalim occurred, causing the intermixing of all the egoistic and altruistic Kalim. Sparks of the Creator's altruistic attributes fell into each egoistic desire, and this enables the desire to become corrected, attaching it to the spiritual. The greater one's predestination is, and the higher Kalim of the soul located within a person are, the greater descents in essence are predestined for one. Therefore, we can never judge another by their actions, since we can never know what corrections they are undergoing at the time.
Okay, so just want to go on one other point here. When we read the Shema in the Jewish religion, the Shema, Shema Israel Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. This is telling us a very important message, right? That we're supposed to believe in God as one. There's nothing else but Him, right? This limitless Ein Sof and His limitless Ein Sof for His light, right? His action. So the reason this is important, deeper than just saying, okay, yeah, I get it. Hashem is one. I don't want to make Him mad. You're the boss. This isn't what we're really supposed to look at this as. We're supposed to understand that there is no past or present, there's now, and He is in control. I can't have idolatry. right? I can't believe that there's another power controlling. Because the moment that I fall out of that, I lose faith and understanding in his will. And that means now I'm taking over the show in my mind and I'm starting to point fingers and blame, right? Well, this is wrong. Yeah, everything's perfect, but this is wrong. And that's wrong. Oh, and this is good. Hashem's blessing us. He's giving us this thing here. And this is bad. And he's hurting us here and punishing us here. This gets us into this concealment of truth. And this also drives us out of being centered, right? And if we look at all the commandments that Moshe had, that he delivered to the people of Israel, all those commandments are really about being centered. They all go back to the same thing, right? When Rabbi Hillel said to us, love your brother, and the rest is commentary, right? He's telling us to trust in the system, really. Okay, people get caught up in loving your brother. I have to hug my brother and I've got to love these people, which, look at this a little deeper. What he's doing is saying, trust that they and the system are in the perfect place. Breathe out and relax in this moment. Okay? This is being centered. And this is our first steps on the path. To get to that space above, to reclimb through and break that barrier, I have to make this my desire to be centered, to breathe. And every game that Hashem throws at us, every place that he plays with us, he's just asking us to overcome. That's all. He's just saying, here, have this, and use this as a tool to overcome. Because the more that I create that +1 and +2 and +3 and +4, and I fall down +1, +2, +3, +4 in the Partsuf, that spiritual vessel, the higher I climb. And he's trying to get us to a destination. Okay, he's trying to say, if you can do this to a certain degree, I'll reveal myself to you. All right? I'll show myself to you, and then we're going to work together here on a big plan. But you got to come past a certain point because I can't give you the light until I can trust you to understand how to use it. Okay? And so this is what we're trying to attain. So when we look at corrections, when the word tikkun or to corrections is being discussed, it's talking about me correcting my state. All right? And I know we hear this as 613 parts of the spiritual parts of him. Who cares about that right now? That's irrelevant to me. Really what I want to do in the beginning is I want to try to keep myself centered because this is going to drive me through in faith and strength and will toward up toward this barrier that I need to break, this spiritual barrier, right, which I need to have. So, Chris, if you can go from imagine, and then we're going to skip ahead in just a few, and I'll stop you. Thanks.
Imagine the earth as the egoistic level. We are located on it with the sky above from which the light descends. If the light does not fall on us, then we are unable to tear away from earth. Such are our attributes. However, if the light shines on us, then figuratively speaking, we tear away from earth towards the light. The light's strength is equal to the height of the elevation or the height of a person soaring over the earth, meaning over our egoistic desire to receive. As soon as the light ceases to shine on us, we immediately fall down to earth as if we had never ascended. We do not possess any positive forces in order to ascend. It is only the Creator's light which elevates us. The higher the spiritual world is located, the greater the distance between fall and ascent. In the world of Absolute, the fall can nearly reach the level of our world. The great Kabbalist Rabbi Shimon, who was on the penultimate spiritual level, suddenly felt himself to be the simple Shimon from the market. That is, all of his knowledge, corrected attributes, and attainment suddenly disappeared, and he became equivalent to a simple and primitive fool. This is how the book of Zohar describes his state.
Okay, so Chris, I just want to touch on this. So it's interesting to see that a rabbi as high as Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, whether you believe that there was an existent rabbi, these are analogies, however we want to look at the book of Zohar, it doesn't matter. The point is the story still says that at this point, even though he was in the ultimate spiritual level, okay, still from the next degree he felt like he was Shimon at the market, right? Which means basically that he felt as if he was a person sitting on the corner in the market with no holiness at all, no sanctity in any way. It's just an average animal that was part of the general cause and had nothing to do with where he really was in reality. And this shows us that there's heights and lows here because in order for him to graduate to that 50th gate or that ultimate level, that total correction. He also had to experience that other side and re-find that center. So there has to be experiential, there has to be this left and right polarity. And how we deal with this polarity and how we find our centeredness in this polarity is vital. Some people can do this in each second, right? And this is the difference between what we label as ascended master, a great sage, or tzaddikim, right? The righteous, as opposed to a person that's on the path and just starting, which is basically somebody who really only works on this once, maybe when they do their group study. I'm trying to somehow be centered here and not trying to breathe out and relax and be centered here. My intention's strong. It's for love and bestowal, and I'm doing my work. Maybe this isn't for me. I don't do this in every moment. Because the real difference is, we have the building of the desire from one height, one attainment level, and the other. And this is all that separates the two. Okay? So my ability to maintain this is my ability to attain it. Right? And so really, however, my work is based on me and my efforts. I reach out for it by putting the vessel in the correct position, and it comes to me. And then it leaves me, and I use that to reestablish myself in center, and it comes to me again. And then it leaves me to a greater degree, and I come to it again to a larger degree. And I go back and forth. I have to have this flux, this wave, this sound, right? They call it atonement. Is it a tone? Is it Lord of the Rings? Is it a ring? Right? So we have all these things that we're looking for, this loop, this infinity loop. It's got to come up and down. It's part of this game. He hands us a certain amount of gold. We give it back, and we feel the lack of that gold. And we come back and take more gold, and we feel the lack of that gold. So we go through these waves, right? So the farther we correct, the harder it is, actually. But the farther we correct, the more we understand it, okay? The more we get it, and the farther we go with it, okay? So at first, expect the bumpy road, especially those that are new on the path. It's going to seem the little tiny corrections are the worst because I don't know what's going on, and nor do I have any revelation of the light at all. Okay, I just know that I'm going through a crazy roller coaster, and this is how we see most people feel. It's just nuts. I take the small as the creator. I take the smallest part of light away from the baby vessel, and it goes crazy. It's the same way you have a child in your arms. The minute you put them down, they're screaming bloody murder with tears. All the parents will know how this works. Okay? And little do they know, you're standing right there. You don't love them any less. They're completely safe, but they're going crazy. And as they learn how to deal with this, sometimes now they start to say, hey, I want to go outside and play. Well, this is completely different than when you were 1 year old. So in the same way we see a baby and a mother is the same way we have to understand the relationship with the Creator. Okay, so Chris, can you go on a little more?
This happens to all of us, even when beginning our spiritual ascent. How can we return from a fall? We can plug into the group even without having the slightest desire by performing actions automatically. Sometimes it is impossible to open a book and read, and at times the only way out may be to sleep. That is, to disconnect ourselves from everything and let time do its work. The most detrimental situation can occur when one is in the highest point of spirituality and begins to selfishly take pleasure in the good feeling of being there, safe, balanced, clear, pleasant, and eternal. It is precisely at this moment, and for this reason, one falls. During this state, it is very important to continually realize it has been given to us in order to keep our thought and intention for the sake of the Creator. However, it is impossible to stay with it. The reason for this is that in order to advance further, it is necessary to fall. Besides falling, there is no other way to acquire additional desires to receive which allow us to ascend once again. The Part Sof is our inner moral state in relation to others and is our level of development. It is impossible to attain the light without first acquiring the desire for it. It is also impossible to apprehend the good without the bad. For example, one can ascend for 15 units and then fall on the 16th because the person has seen their true attributes in their worst form. By ascending, we become illuminated by a great light and can see ourselves in comparison to the best attributes on the higher level.
So all previous levels continue to live in us. A person is able to see the bad when on high when a high spiritual level, the greater the light shines on a person, the worse one sees their self in relation to that light. This rule applies until we arrive at the final level of full correction. Okay, so we're going to stop here. I'm just going to end saying that when we speak about the spiritual Partsufim, and we're talking about these levels, the importance of understanding how they work together and commingle it together is vital because, again, like we mentioned yesterday, I have to understand how the parts fit, okay, and what I'm being asked to do. Now, at first, all of this seems totally vague and completely irrational to me. I look at these volumes that are written by the Arizal and everyone else, Shimon Bar Yochai, the Zohar, everything, and it makes no sense to me. I don't understand it, and this is okay. As I generate and correct myself to a certain degree, the texts become alive to me. They start to feel and flow inside of me. It's not that my mind calculates them. It's not that I can understand them like I would study some school text. It's that the words actually become real to me. I can feel and penetrate the words. I understand what they're saying. Okay, it's like reading a psalm on some level. There's one level we read it and go, oh, that's beautiful. There's another level we read it and we dive into it to where we absolutely merge with it. We feel King David's, at that exact moment, what he was feeling. We merge into that. We understand every word that he's saying. We can relate. We attain the level that he's on. Okay? So for someone who doesn't understand the Tehillim, or goes through and reads a psalm like that, or a book like Zohar, it would just seem like words. And, yes, I get it. So there's some God, and he's causing wars, and something's happening. But on a different degree, when I'm able to correct these levels to a certain state, a certain condition, and rise to these certain levels, I'm able to penetrate. And the same way this happens when we look at the books around the Partsufim and the spiritual worlds. We start to relate to how, yes, I understand how this fits together. I see how this comes together. And I can utilize that as a roadmap as well for the higher levels. Okay? And this is something that we try to tackle, we talk about and go through. But I know for most people it's just, it sounds Greek. So the key is to stay with those texts and to keep ourselves centered and not fall out of this good state, this intention, which then removes us from that light, right? The last thing I'll say before we cut off is, and we'll go through some questions if we have any, is, and I made mention of this twice already, but I think it's really important to remember this. And I just keep repeating it over and over again, and I hate to sound ridiculous here, but when we look at the famous statue of the thinking man, right, we see the thinking man sitting around waiting for his thought to come to him. And we have to remember how important that is, that the thinking man is not generating a thought within himself, that he's not waiting for his brain to catch up and to spout out a thought, because the brain works at light speed. It doesn't need to, it's not like we have mice in there that are running around a habit trail and we're waiting for them to get to a certain place. We're waiting for the generation of this creativity to be given to us through this light. So really what we're doing is we're playing with this meter that goes right and left until we hit the perfect centered desire, and then boom, this creative light shows up. And then we say, oh, I got it, right? I have it, I got it, I got the idea. Well, how did you get it? What was that process? The process was delivered to me because I waited and played with my state until I found the correct polarity. Right? And in the same way, we have to generate that desire. That works through everything in life. I have to generate the right desire. And when I do, boom, the floodgates open up. So I have to do that when I study. I have to do that throughout my day. I have to do that throughout my life toward everyone I'm with. I have to maintain that correct level, that correct desire, which isn't for the next moment. It's not for the last moment. It's in this moment because I trust, I have faith, I love, and I believe that Hashem is one. At the Ein Sof, this great mind is one, and I'm just going to let go to that river, right? I'm just going to let that river take me, because wherever it goes, whether I'm dead, I suffer, anything, I trust that it's the right place. And this is part of building that correct desire. Now, there's a lot more that we want to go into here that gets deeper and deeper, but for now, we're going to let this go here and end here. If anyone has any questions, just jump in and ask now.